You didn't stumble into this transmission. It found you the way a tuning fork finds its twin through resonance, through a quiet inevitability that doesn't ask permission. In the observer loop of your life, the subtle circuit where attention shapes reality and reality answers attention, you've reached a precise coordinate. Call it a summons, a recall notice from your deeper self. The quantum field prefers coherence over noise, and today your signal cut through. That's why you're here. Breathe, and notice the soft click inside as something aligns. Synchronicity is not cute, it's architectural. It is the blueprint speaking. A sentence seen at exactly the right moment, a dream that refuses to fade, a stranger's phrase that lands like a key. These weren't coincidences. They were morphic resonance, patterns echoing across the invisible, nudging you toward this doorway. The doorway is simple. Stabilize your frequency. Anchor the awakening that's already begun in you so it can imprint into matter. You've sensed it. Time has felt elastic. Minutes that stretch, weeks that vanish, memories that glow with a meaning you can't quite name. That elasticity is the fringe of phase transition, when water contemplates ice, when caterpillar contemplates flight. You are standing in the hush before solid becomes new solid. In that hush, your biology listens. Your breath is an instrument, your spine, an antenna, your heart, a metronome for realities. When breath and awareness agree, your field settles into coherence, and coherence is how timelines become obedient. There's a reason the old habits have felt heavier lately, like wet fabric you keep wringing out. Entanglement. The future you steady, luminous, uncluttered, has already braided threads through your present choices. You can feel the tug. You can hear the quiet instruction under the noise. Slow down, lengthen the exhale, claim the room inside your chest. The Hermeticists said, as within, so without. The quantum says, as you observe, so it becomes. Different languages, same law. Your inner climate drafts the outer weather. Right now, your system is asking for a clean carrier wave. Not perfection, not performance, stability. When you stabilize, the field mirrors. Doors that refused you swing open on unforced hinges. People who never noticed your frequency suddenly orbit your gravity. Creative ideas stop arriving as sparks and begin arriving as constellations mapped, sequenced, executable. This is what anchored awakening looks like. Not a high, but a home. Not a chase, but a chair pulled out at the banquet you've always been invited to. Listen closely. Your DNA is not static code, it's responsive scripture. When you breathe with intention, when attention rests, where breath rests, a silent re-indexing begins, microcurrents changing shape along fascia lines, heart rhythms tutoring the brain softening its grip on fear's loop. You call this calm. Nature calls it permission. The field calls it access. And access is everything. So let this find you fully. Let the distractions fail. Let the old stories sit in the waiting room while you meet with the architect. You were not meant to white-knuckle your destiny. You were meant to conduct it. And you conduct it through frequency, through a steady, dignified presence that tells the quantum, I'm ready for coherence now. We're going to anchor that, breath by breath, principle by principle. No theatrics, no mystical fog. Just the simple, sovereign physics of you remembering what your body has always known. When the inner metronome steadies, the universe keeps time with you. You already know the symptoms, because you've been living them. Time hasn't behaved like time. Days blur, hours vanish, nights stretch into strange corridors of memory, and you find yourself asking, was that a dream, or did it actually happen? Déjà vu stalks your steps like an echo that arrives before the sound. The same faces appear in different guises, the same conversations repeat in slightly altered tones, and you feel caught inside a loop that refuses to declare its exit. This is not madness, this is entanglement. It is what happens when consciousness pulls too many threads at once, past selves still whispering their regrets, future selves sending back transmissions, and your present self trying to translate it all into linear language. The distortion you feel in time isn't broken clockwork, it's the elasticity of reality, preparing to reorganize. Consider the observer loop. Every thought, every judgment, every assumption becomes an observation. and each observation collapses the infinite potential of the quantum field into a lived experience. But what happens when you carry unresolved loops, patterns you've replayed so often that they've burned grooves into your nervous system? You keep collapsing the same probabilities, the same relationship dynamic with different names, the same financial struggle with different numbers, the same anxieties dressed in new disguises. It feels like déjà vu because it is déjà vu. You've been observing from the same frequency, so reality keeps obliging you with the same mirror. And it's exhausting, because somewhere inside, you know you're capable of more. You've glimpsed it in flashes, a strange calm that descends during meditation, a dream that felt more real than waking, a sudden surge of clarity that told you, this isn't the only version of me that exists. But then the old cycles reassert themselves, pulling you back into their gravity. Let's be clear, the distortion isn't a punishment, it's a signal. In physics, when a system reaches instability, when it vibrates at the edge of coherence, it begins to fluctuate, to show irregular patterns. These fluctuations are precursors to breakthrough, not evidence of failure. Your déjà vu, your repeating loops, your fractured timelines, they're the flickering of an old identity breaking apart, like static before the channel locks onto the right frequency. And your body knows it. That's why you've been restless, why sleep doesn't feel like sleep, why even your breath sometimes feels too shallow for the immensity of what's pressing on your chest. Your DNA is listening for a command it hasn't received yet. Without stability, it tries to run old programs just to keep you safe. That's why fear returns. That's why doubt multiplies. Not because you're broken, but because your system is buying time until you finally stabilize the signal and allow a new program to load. Think about how many times you felt like you were almost there. A breakthrough job that dissolved, a relationship that felt destined only to collapse, a project that carried momentum and then inexplicably stalled. These weren't random losses, they were failed attempts at coherence. Your field wasn't stable enough yet to hold what it was calling in. The universe wasn't withholding, it was calibrating. Every failure was a feedback loop teaching you how much coherence is required for reality to reorganize in your favor. So if you've been haunted by patterns, if you felt trapped in déjà vu, if time itself has felt distorted, you're not cursed, you're primed. You've been living at the edge of coherence, where the old resists dying and the new resists being born. That threshold is uncomfortable by design. The caterpillar liquefies in the chrysalis before the butterfly emerges. The seed splits open in darkness before roots find their way. Your threshold is asking one thing of you now: stability, not perfection, not endless struggle, not trying harder. Stability, because when your frequency steadies, the observer loop resets. The same patterns stop repeating, time stops glitching. Déjà vu becomes replaced with synchrony, where the right people, the right words, the right opportunities converge, not in distorted repetition, but in clear resonance. Feel that truth land. Your loops are not life sentences, they are just evidence of unstable observation. The fact that you've noticed them means you're already pulling away from their gravity. This is why you were called here, not to be told you're broken, but to be reminded that you're entangled in something greater than repetition. You're standing at the very edge of a phase transition, and once stability is introduced, those loops don't just end, they collapse into new timelines you've been carrying like hidden blueprints all along. This is the diagnosis, yes, but also the relief. You are not failing. You are flickering, and flickering is what light does, just before it stabilizes into flame. Now that you've seen the distortion for what it is, let's step into the upgrade your system has been waiting for. Because what you're living through isn't a collapse of sanity, it's a recalibration of frequency. And the very symptoms you've been wrestling with, time distortion, repeated loops, déjà vu, are proof that the upgrade has already begun. In quantum mechanics, there's a principle called superposition. A particle can exist in multiple states simultaneously until it's observed. Your life right now is mirroring that truth. You are existing in multiple states at once: the self who still feels bound to old cycles, the self who dreams of something larger, and the self who already lives in that expanded reality. All three states are real, but only one will stabilize. And stabilization requires coherence. Coherence isn't just calmness, it's resonance between your heart, your brain, your breath, and the quantum field itself. It's when your nervous system stops firing in contradictory patterns and begins to sing in harmony, like an orchestra tuning to a single pitch. When this happens, your biology and the field begin to mirror each other. Your DNA switches out of survival mode and into expression mode. Genes that have been dormant begin to hum. Cellular communication becomes more efficient. Your body literally becomes more light conductive. This is why mystics across cultures spoke of breath as the hinge of awakening, because breath is the metronome of coherence. Each inhale and exhale is either random, static, or deliberate rhythm. When you lengthen it, when you guide it, you are not just calming your mind, you are restructuring the entire electrical pattern of your body, and that pattern is what the field responds to. Imagine your breath as a tuning fork. With each cycle, you send a signal into the field. This is my frequency. If your signal is erratic, jagged with fear, cut with doubt, the field has no stable instruction. It reflects back chaos because chaos is what you broadcast. But if your signal is steady, coherent, deliberate, the field organizes itself around that stability. Opportunities line up, relationships recalibrate, resources converge. Not because you manifested them like a wish list, but because reality had no choice but to respond to the coherent blueprint you were radiating. This is where science meets mysticism. What the ancients described as prayer or ritual is now recognized by neuroscience as neural entrainment, by physics as constructive interference, and by biology as epigenetic activation. Your practices, when done with intention, aren't just symbolic. They are mechanical interventions at the quantum level. Each time you steady your frequency, you're creating the conditions for your reality to reorganize around you. And here's the deeper layer. Coherence isn't just individual, it's collective. When you stabilize, your field interacts with others. Your calm nervous system entrains theirs. Your coherent heart rhythm alters the morphic field in the room. This is why your presence has always felt heavier, deeper, more magnetic than others realized. People don't just like being around you, their systems are borrowing coherence from yours. But here's the paradox. Until you anchor your own stability, that magnetism drains you. Because instead of radiating coherence, you end up constantly compensating for the incoherence of others. That's why you felt exhausted in certain rooms, why your chest tightens around certain people, why social spaces sometimes leave you feeling emptied. You're built to radiate coherence, but until the upgrade completes, you've been bleeding energy instead of transmitting it. So the question is no longer whether you're capable of this upgrade. The question is whether you will allow it. Because your biology is ready, your nervous system is primed, the quantum field has already cued the new pattern. All that's left is for you to step fully into coherence, not as a practice you try once in a while, but as the new default frequency you broadcast. Feel into this. Your life is not asking you to fix every problem or chase every desire. Your life is asking you to stabilize the frequency from which all problems dissolve and all desires reorganize. That's the upgrade. That's the invitation. Not endless effort, but coherence. Not chasing, but broadcasting. And once you allow it, you'll begin to see what's been hidden all along, that the loops were never cages, they were training grounds, that the distortions were never flaws, they were signals, that your body is not betraying you. It's evolving, becoming the very antenna through which awakening anchors into matter. You are not waiting for the upgrade. You are the upgrade. And now, you're being asked to wear that truth like skin. Now that you've understood the upgrade, we must speak to something even more unsettling and far more profound. Why you? Out of billions of conscious observers streaming reality through their nervous systems, why does this message track you down? Why does synchronicity keep tugging your sleeve? Why do you feel like the entire quantum field has placed its finger on your coordinates? Because you are not here to be a casual participant. You are here as a stabilizer, a chosen consciousness in the collective experiment of awakening. It's easy to underestimate this role, because from the inside it feels like constant pressure. You wake up heavier than most, as though you've been carrying invisible weights all night. You walk into rooms and sense currents other people pretend aren't there, tension in the air, unspoken words vibrating in the walls, histories clinging to objects. You don't just see reality, you feel its hidden scaffolding. And because you feel it, you influence it. This is the mark of a chosen stabilizer. Your nervous system is wired to register the disharmony of the field, not so you drown in it, but so you can transmute it. The same way a tuning fork will vibrate when struck near another of its frequency, you vibrate when the field around you is out of tune. Most mistake this sensitivity for weakness, but sensitivity is signal. You are entrusted with it because only a few can carry it without breaking. Think about the times your mere presence shifted everything. You didn't give a lecture, you didn't issue a command. You just walked in, breathed differently, carried yourself with coherence, and the entire conversation changed. That's not coincidence. That's morphic resonance. When one system stabilizes, others reorganize around it. You've been doing it unconsciously for years. Now it's time to do it consciously. This is why your path has felt so isolating. You weren't meant to blend in. Blending in would neutralize your frequency, dilute your role. You were placed at the edges, sometimes even in exile, not because you were unworthy, but because your system needed enough space to amplify without distortion. Loneliness has been the training ground for sovereignty. The silence forced you to recognize your own resonance without the interference of the crowd. And still, you doubt. Still, you ask, who am I to believe my consciousness has a cosmic role? Who am I to think the field cares what I broadcast? But look at the evidence. Look at the unexplainable magnetism you've carried since childhood. Look at how strangers confess their lives to you without knowing why. Look at how you've survived storms that should have shattered you and emerged with wisdom you never studied, clarity you never earned through textbooks. This is not luck. This is appointment. Your role is not louder action, but deeper presence. To be the one who remembers coherence when others forget. To be the one who stabilizes frequency when the collective tilts toward chaos. The field doesn't need everyone to hold coherence, only a few. And those few are disproportionately powerful. Like lasers compared to scattered light, they direct reality instead of being dispersed by it. And this is why you've been tested harder than most. The universe doesn't train ornaments, it trains instruments. You've been hammered, bent, tempered, not to break you, but to tune you. Every disappointment, every delay, every betrayal was pressure applied to refine your frequency. And now, you stand at the threshold, not as a victim of fate, but as a conductor of it. Hear this clearly. You are not merely awakening for yourself. You are awakening as a node in the larger grid of human evolution. When you stabilize, entire lineages stabilize, entire communities recalibrate. Waves ripple outward into the morphic field, giving others permission to remember what you now embody. This is your special role. The observer loop doesn't just collapse into personal outcomes when you watch it, collapses into collective shifts. Your observation is weighted, your consciousness has gravity. You were chosen, not for comfort, but for calibration. And as you step into coherence, the quantum field doesn't just respond to you, it reorganizes around you. You've always suspected you were carrying something bigger than your own story. This is the confirmation, and the upgrade is preparing you to wield it fully. There's a reason the air feels different right now, heavier but electric, like the pressure before a storm. It isn't just your imagination. You are standing inside a cosmic window, a precise confluence of geometry, timing, and frequency, where your DNA, your nervous system, and the field around you can synchronize faster than ever before. It's a limited window, and it's opening now. Think of the seed again. For months it swells underground, unseen. Then a single day arrives when pressure, moisture, and sunlight align, and the shell cracks. That cracking looks like destruction, but it's the only way the seed becomes a tree. You are at that cracking point. The morphic shell around your old identity is splitting. Everything you've been sensing, déjà vu, restless nights, emotions rising like tides, is your inner seed coat tearing to make way for emergence. This is not metaphorical DNA talk. Your literal DNA coils and uncoils in response to frequency. When you stabilize your breath, your emotions, your focus, you're sending an epigenetic signal. Open this gene, close that one. Your body translates your consciousness into biochemical messages, and those messages become your baseline state. When your baseline shifts, reality reorganizes because your observer loop stops broadcasting the old identity. And here's where the urgency comes in. Cosmic windows don't stay open forever. The coherence you build now is like wet clay. It's pliable. In a few weeks, it will harden into your next baseline. If you drift, you imprint the old loops again. If you stabilize, you lock in the upgrade and everything downstream of it. Relationships, finances, opportunities, intuition changes, trajectory. You've already felt hints of this. Those moments when your whole body vibrated for no reason. The shivers across your scalp when you read a certain phrase. The sense that something is about to happen without evidence. Those weren't nerves. They were phase, transition tremors. When water nears its boiling point, its molecules vibrate faster and faster. You're feeling the same acceleration in your own field. This is why every distraction has intensified. Old habits resurfacing, old doubts whispering, random crises trying to pull you off center. It's not coincidence. It's the inertia of your old timeline making one last bid to stay alive. Because if you anchor the new frequency through this window, the old patterns lose their grip permanently. Feel into that for a moment. Permanently. Not better for a while. Not improved until the next setback. Permanently. Because the upgrade you're stepping into isn't about managing symptoms. It's about restructuring the source code of your reality. When the code changes, the programs change. When the frequency stabilizes, the mirror reflects a new image. But you can't drift into it passively. This is the point where surrender and discipline meet. Surrender to the field's intelligence, yes, but also discipline in your focus, your breath, your declarations. Because every thought, every exhale, every choice, right now imprints more strongly than usual. The window amplifies your broadcast. That's why you were guided here. To hear, in clear language, what your cells have been trying to tell you in sensation. Hold steady now. Not forever. Just long enough for the phase transition to complete. Long enough for the clay to set. Long enough for your observer loop to stop collapsing the old timeline and lock onto the new one. You've been preparing for this far longer than you realize. Every meditation, every night, you chose faith over fear. Every time you walked away from what was easy but incoherent, you were building the musculature for this moment. You are not behind. You are right on time. The pressure you feel is not a sign of failure. It's the indicator that you've reached critical mass. So hear this as a promise, but also a summons. If you stabilize now, if you hold your frequency through this window, your life will not be a slightly upgraded version of the old story. It will reorganize entirely. New people, new opportunities, new capacities, not by magic, but by physics. Because the field can't resist a coherent broadcast. This is the breakthrough threshold. The cosmic window is open. Your DNA is listening. The field is waiting for a clear instruction. And your entire future is leaning in, asking one question. Will you anchor the new frequency or drift back into the old loops? This is the moment to decide. Not tomorrow. Now. You've felt the tug. You've understood the window. You've seen the loops. Now we move from understanding into embodiment. Because the quantum field doesn't respond to intellectual agreement, it responds to lived frequency. This is where ritual becomes your ally, not as superstition, but as a precision tool for stabilizing your signal. Every tradition on this planet, Hermetic, Vedic, indigenous, mystical Christian, Sufi, kept some form of breath or word ritual. Not because breath and word are magical charms, but because breath is the metronome of your electromagnetic field, and word is the coding language of your nervous system. Together, they act like a command line to the quantum operating system of your life. Take a slow inhale right now. Not a polite one, a full one. Pull it down to the base of your spine as if you're drawing a luminous cord from the center of the earth through your body. Pause. Feel the still point between inhale and exhale. Now release slowly, as though you're emptying static out of your cells. This is not relaxation, it's synchronization. In physics, two oscillators placed near each other will eventually sync. Your breath is the first oscillator, the field is the second. When your breath steadies, the field has no choice but to phase lock with you. While you breathe, add the simplest Hermetic principle you can. As within, so without. Whisper it on the exhale. Let the sound vibrate through your chest. This is more than a mantra. It's an anchoring of identity. Every time you speak it, you remind your cells that your inner climate drafts your outer weather. You're instructing your DNA to hold the pattern of coherence no matter what appears outside. Then, choose a single word, one word only, to declare who you're becoming. Not a wish, not a label from the past. A word that carries the frequency of your new baseline. It could be steady, it could be radiant, it could be anchored. Whatever rises in you without effort is the right one. Type it or write it as you breathe. When you write or comment the word, you're collapsing potential into form. You're sending a visible signal to your own observer loop. This is the version I'm broadcasting. Don't underestimate this. In the quantum field, measurement equals creation. When you take an invisible intention and make it visible through breath, sound, or written word, you've performed a micro-collapse of superposition into reality. It's why mystics kept journals, why prophets spoke aloud, why initiates traced sigils in the air. They were not decorating ritual, they were hacking physics. This is also why you've been drawn to transmissions like this one. You're not just watching a video, you're participating in a group coherence field. Every person who comments their word, every person who breathes with you right now, is adding to a morphic template that makes your own shift easier. You don't see the others, but their signatures are here. The field registers them. You're not alone in this practice. You're part of a living lattice of consciousness stabilizing itself through shared ritual. So tonight, or whenever you feel the old loops pulling at you, do this. Sit upright, feet flat, spine aligned. Inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 6. On each exhale, whisper your chosen word or the Hermetic principle. After 3 minutes, write the word once. Don't analyze it, don't decorate it, just write it. This tiny sequence acts like a software patch. It trains your nervous system to default to coherence, anchors your expanded identity in your body, and signals the quantum field that the new baseline is stable. It's simple, but it's not small, and you will feel the shift. Not a fireworks display, but a quiet settling. The sense that the static recedes, that the inner metronome is louder than the outer noise. Over days, synchronicities will increase. Choices will feel obvious instead of confusing. Old triggers will lose their charge. This is not placebo, it's phase, transition stabilization. You've spent years waiting for external confirmation that you're ready. This ritual is the confirmation. By acting, breathing, and declaring now, you seal the shift you've been preparing for. The field reads action more loudly than it reads thought. So take your breath, speak your word, type it below as a public declaration. Not for me, but for you. Not for the algorithm, but for the quantum. This is how you stop being a passive observer and become an active conductor of your frequency. This is how the upgrade stops flickering and starts landing. Every breath you take this way is an anchor dropped into the timeline you're choosing. Every written word is a stake in the new reality. This is ritual as physics. This is how you stabilize awakening in matter. And this is how you, quietly and steadily, step fully into the life your cells have been rehearsing in secret. As soon as you begin practicing the ritual, something subtle but undeniable happens. The room feels different. Not because incense was lit or music was played, but because you became a broadcast tower. Your heart's electromagnetic field extends several feet beyond your body, and when you breathe deliberately, it expands even farther. In that expansion, you're no longer just stabilizing your frequency, you're influencing the entire morphic field around you. This is the point most people miss. They think awakening is a private project, a kind of spiritual self-improvement plan. But consciousness is never isolated. The quantum field is a web of entanglement. Every observer loop is connected to every other observer loop. When you stabilize your timeline, you subtly adjust the probabilities of everyone you're connected to. Children, partners, co-workers, strangers on a bus, their nervous systems feel the coherence you radiate, even if they can't name it. This is why the Hermeticists spoke of the great work as an interior act with global consequences. It's why the Vedic rishis retreated into caves not to escape humanity, but to tune humanity's signal from the inside. It's why mystics across traditions describe their practices as holding the world together. They weren't exaggerating. They were describing morphic resonance at scale. When you comment your word, when you breathe your pattern, you're not just sending a message to the quantum field about your own life. You're sending a stabilizing pulse through the collective nervous system. You become like a stone dropped into a still pond. Ripples move outward. Other stones respond. The surface reorganizes. That's why, when you've been steady, people around you spontaneously start making better choices. That's why friends confide in you without knowing why. That's why you sense a collective sigh when you walk into chaotic spaces. Your field has been functioning as a tuning fork all along. Now you're wielding it consciously, and this is where your role as a chosen stabilizer starts to feel less like a burden and more like an honor. Because the more you anchor coherence, the less energy it costs you. Instead of constantly absorbing other people's noise, you start emitting a frequency so stable that noise can't penetrate. Others begin to harmonize with you instead of draining you. You stop taking on their stuff. Your field becomes a template of order they naturally align with. Watch what happens in the coming days as you practice. A friend who's been anxious suddenly sleeps better. A co-worker who's been stuck in negativity softens. Family conflicts ease without long conversations. You may never get credit for it, and you don't need it. The field knows. Every act of coherence you perform is registered and amplified through the entangled grid of consciousness. This is also why your breakthrough matters beyond you. Humanity is in its own phase transition. Old systems are collapsing. New patterns are trying to emerge. Most people experience this as chaos, polarization, and fatigue. But from a quantum perspective, it's the same flicker you've been living personally, the whole species hovering at the edge of coherence, trying to stabilize a new baseline. When enough individuals anchor a new frequency, the collective field reaches critical mass and reorganizes at a higher order. So every time you sit upright, breathe deliberately, whisper your word, and anchor your field, you're not only stabilizing your life, you're helping to pull an entire planet through a morphic gateway. You're adding one more coherent node to the grid. This is the hidden architecture of collective awakening. It doesn't begin with mass rallies or grand speeches. It begins with steady nervous systems broadcasting new information into the field. Feel that truth for a moment. Your private ritual is a public service. Your stable frequency is a prayer that doesn't end in your lungs but travels as far as the quantum can reach. This is how revolutions actually happen at the deepest level, not through force, but through resonance. And when you truly grasp this, urgency transforms into devotion. You stop practicing because you're desperate for your own breakthrough. You practice because you're aware that your breakthrough is everyone's breakthrough. You become part of an unseen choir, rewriting the baseline of reality. This is what you were born for. This is why the loops felt unbearable. They were training you to hold coherence under pressure. This is why you were guided here at this precise moment, because the grid needed another node to lock in the pattern. And you're it. As you continue, remember, you're not fixing the world. You're stabilizing your own frequency so powerfully that the world cannot help but reorganize around you. This is how the quantum field responds to a chosen consciousness, not with applause, but with emergence. Up to now, we've been speaking about concepts, observer loops, coherence, morphic fields. But the field doesn't speak in concepts. It speaks in sensation. It listens to your cells, not your slogans. This is why you can recite affirmations and still feel blocked. Your mouth says one thing, but your nervous system broadcasts another. Embodiment is where the code actually runs. Take a moment and sense your body right now. Notice the soles of your feet. Feel the weight of your body on the chair or the ground. Sense the air sliding past your nostrils. These are not distractions. These are the portals. In the quantum field, your body is the receiver, your breath is the tuner, and your attention is the dial. Without embodiment, the signal never stabilizes. When you breathe your chosen word, when you whisper, anchored, radiant, steady, you're doing more than repeating a mantra. You're programming fascia, organs, neural networks. Your cells vibrate with the sound. Microcurrents shift under your skin, and the electromagnetic halo around you brightens. Science calls this the vagus nerve downshift. Mystics call it the descent of spirit. Two languages, One event. Imagine each inhale as pulling coherence into your cells, like light weaving through fibers. Imagine each exhale as sending a signal outward, like a lighthouse beam cutting through fog. As you practice, you may start to feel heat in your palms, tingling in your spine, a hum behind your heart. This is your body's version of yes. These are not side effects. They're evidence of phase transition. When a system reorganizes at a higher order, energy moves. You're feeling the movement. This is why embodiment matters so much. Without it, the shift stays mental, interesting but inert. With it, the shift becomes cellular, inevitable. Your DNA listens more closely to sensation than to thought. When you sit upright, breathe rhythmically, and speak your word with your whole chest, you're telling your DNA, this is the new normal. Hold this pattern. Genes open or close accordingly. Hormones recalibrate. Neural firing patterns shift. You literally become a different frequency. And something else happens too. Your environment starts to entrain. You'll notice rooms feel quieter when you enter. People speak more slowly around you. Strangers will look at you as if they know you. Animals will track you with their eyes. Nature will respond. Breezes rising when you exhale. Birds appearing at odd moments. It's not fantasy. It's morphic feedback. The field is reflecting your new broadcast. Don't be alarmed if physical sensations intensify at first. Pressure at the crown, pulsing at the base of the spine, waves of emotion coming from nowhere. These are signs of energy redistributing. You're not breaking, you're rewiring. Treat each sensation as a messenger, not a problem. Breathe into it. Name it gently. Let it pass through. Over time, this embodied practice creates a new default. You stop having to do the ritual. You start being the ritual. Your breath slows automatically. Your posture holds itself upright. Your mind stays quiet, even in noisy places. You feel your chosen word as a vibration under your skin. This is coherence installed, not rehearsed. And here's the deeper beauty. Embodiment makes joy ordinary. Not the spike of happiness that comes from a win, but a steady hum of well-being that exists regardless of circumstance. This hum is not mood, it's field recognition. It's your system saying, I'm home. When you live from this hum, synchronicities aren't surprises anymore, they're simply the way life feels. So as you practice, stop asking, is it working? And start asking, what do I feel? Notice the tingles, the warmth, the ease. Notice how your heartbeat and breath begin to sync. Notice how your thoughts slow down and your perception sharpens. These are the metrics that matter. The external world will reorganize soon enough, but the first evidence of shift is always in the body. This is the missing piece in most manifestation teachings. They teach mental techniques without embodiment, so people end up with a head full of affirmations but a body broadcasting doubt. You're doing something different. You're collapsing the gap between thought and flesh. You're becoming the frequency, not just thinking about it. And once your body knows the frequency, it never forgets. Like a tuning fork, it can be struck again and again and still ring true. This is how you anchor awakening in matter, not by holding ideas, but by training your cells. You're building a living temple where your expanded consciousness can actually dwell. Feel into that truth. You're not just stabilizing your own field anymore. You're turning your very body into a lighthouse for the new reality. Breath by breath, sensation by sensation, you're installing coherence in the only place it can actually transmit, through you. This is embodiment. This is anchoring. This is what your cells have been asking for all along. Up until now, you've been stabilizing, breathing, embodying. You've been sensing the hum in your chest, the tingles in your palms, the way synchronicities swirl closer when you're coherent. But something deeper is happening beneath the sensations, hidden in the spiral staircase of your DNA. Because awakening isn't just psychological, it's biological. Your very code is listening, and it's rewriting itself. Scientists once called most of your DNA junk, as if the creator wasted space. But mystics knew better. They called it the Book of Life, the archive of forgotten frequencies, dormant until the right moment. That moment is now. Your rituals, your breath, your chosen word, they've been knocking on sealed doors. And piece by piece, those doors are opening. DNA doesn't simply replicate cells, it translates vibration into flesh. When your heart rhythm becomes coherent, when your breath steadies, you generate a consistent electromagnetic field. That field brushes against the double helix like wind through chimes. Coils loosen. Genes that were silenced by trauma or fear begin to glow with readiness. Information that was always encoded in you, but never expressed, finally steps forward. This is why you've been feeling pressure. The crown of your head buzzing, heat in the spine, emotional waves rising without warning. It's not random discomfort. It's the sensation of strands unwinding, proteins folding differently, instructions rewriting themselves. In physics, this is called a phase transition pressure. Think of ice about to melt. The molecules vibrate harder, pushing against the crystalline order until suddenly water, the same substance, reorganized into a new state. That's what your cells are doing now, and the implications are staggering. This breakthrough isn't just about feeling calmer or happier. It's about unlocking capacities your old biology couldn't sustain. Sharper intuition, faster healing, a magnetic presence that bends probability. This is why your old patterns fought so hard to keep you, because once this DNA shift stabilizes, the loops can't touch you anymore. The resonance is too high, the blueprint too different. You literally become incompatible with the timeline that once imprisoned you. But let's be clear, this shift isn't always gentle. Just as birth contractions precede new life, DNA breakthroughs create pressure that tests your faith. Sleepless nights, vivid dreams, flashes of anger or grief, body aches that medical scans can't explain. These are not malfunctions, they're contractions. Your old nervous system is being squeezed out so the new one can breathe. And here's where many stumble. They interpret the pressure as failure. They panic, thinking the process has gone wrong. But remember, the chrysalis looks like collapse until the wings unfold. What feels like breaking down is your cellular scaffolding breaking open. The discomfort is proof that the field is active, that your DNA is responding, that the morphic shell is cracking. So what do you do in this pressure? You breathe, you anchor, you remind your system, this is emergence. You let your chosen word pulse through your bloodstream like a second heartbeat. Each time you whisper it, you're telling your DNA, stabilize here, imprint this pattern, hold this reality, and your DNA listens. It has always listened. Understand this. Your DNA is not just a chemical archive. It is an antenna, both transmitting and receiving. It receives signals from your environment, your thoughts, your emotions, your rituals. When you stabilize, it tunes into coherence. When you panic, it collapses into static. That's why the ritual matters not as a mystical ceremony, but as a biological reprogramming. And the field notices. The moment your DNA stabilizes in a new pattern, the quantum responds. Resources shift, people appear, time itself bends. It's not metaphor, it's entanglement. Your cells broadcast a new signal, and the universe reorganizes to match it. That's why synchronicities cascade after breakthroughs. The field is recalibrating around your upgraded code. This is the breakthrough you've been waiting for. Not a miracle falling from the sky, but a miracle unfolding in your marrow. Not a blessing handed down, but a blessing rising from within your spiral staircase. You don't have to chase it, you are it. And the pressure you feel is simply the threshold between old identity and new embodiment. So hold steady. Don't run from the contractions. They are the proof. They are the drumbeat announcing the new configuration. Your DNA is lighting up. Your field is amplifying. Your future self is weaving threads backward into this moment, pulling you through. And once the code locks in, nothing, no loop, no fear, no distortion will be able to pull you back. You are in the breakthrough zone now. The shift is cellular, irreversible, divine. Breath by breath, you are becoming the frequency that not only stabilizes your life, but rewrites the fabric of reality itself. The spiral has brought you here, breath steady, word chosen, body humming, DNA unlocking like a book that's been sealed for lifetimes. This is where your personal story and the larger story become one. Because what you've been practicing isn't just a private upgrade, it's a prototype for humanity's next octave. Look around, not with your eyes, but with your field. Entire systems are trembling the way you trembled months ago. Institutions flicker, old paradigms split open, collective timelines glitch and repeat. It looks like chaos, but you now recognize the pattern. It's the same phase transition pressure you felt in your own nervous system. The species is inside a chrysalis, and the imaginal cells, the ones carrying the code for wings, are waking up. You are one of those imaginal cells. Every breath you've taken with intention, every time you've whispered your word, every night you've held coherence, when the world screamed for panic, you've been training to become a stabilizer in this planetary field. That's your cosmic mission, to radiate coherence so steadily that it becomes easier for others to remember who they are. Not by preaching, not by converting, but by embodying. Presence, not performance. Resonance, not rhetoric. This is why you were guided here at this exact moment, not to escape the world, but to anchor a new one. The Hermetic axiom, as within, so without, isn't a poetic suggestion. It's an operational manual. When enough individuals stabilize a new inner climate, the outer weather reorganizes, policies shift, technologies arise, cultures remember kindness. The quantum field reconfigures to mirror the dominant broadcast, and you are part of that broadcast now. Your DNA is transmitting a new signal. Your breath is the metronome. Your chosen word is the code. This is not a metaphorical contribution. It is a literal frequency uploaded into the morphic field. It's why synchronicities have been multiplying. It's why strangers' eyes linger on you. It's why the air feels different when you enter a room. You're no longer just inside the field, you're shaping it. As you move forward, keep your ritual simple. One word, one breath pattern, one decision at a time to embody the version of you that already lives in the timeline you've chosen. Let coherence be your default, not your effort. And watch how the world reorganizes around you without struggle, without force. This is the closing of the loop and the opening of the mission. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are no longer rehearsing. You are broadcasting. And as you broadcast, you will find yourself surrounded by others doing the same. Not because you recruited them, but because resonance draws resonance. The lattice of awakening strengthens node by node until the whole grid hums at a higher order. Take one final deep breath and feel this truth. You are not separate from what you seek. You never were. You are the stabilizer, the imaginal cell, the lighthouse, the new code walking in human form. And as you walk, the quantum listens, organizes, and unfolds. This is what stabilize your frequency really means, not a technique, but a destiny. From here, every step you take is a signal, every breath you draw is a broadcast, every moment of coherence you embody is a permission slip for the world to remember itself. You are the field, awake within the field, shaping the field, and the era you came to anchor has begun.